I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the town of Saugeen Shores and extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. The first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility to do so. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda, and we have no delegations this evening. The first order of business then is a general government staff report, and it has to do with the Eckford Avenue Road closure and sale of land, and our clerk Linda White will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The town has received 2 applications for the acquisition of the unopened section of the Eckford Avenue Road allowance. The applicants are Scott Good of 466 Eckford Avenue and Danny and Patricia Luscombe of 470 Eckford Avenue. This is a standard application that we've had for a number of properties along this stretch. So prior to selling the land, the town is required to complete the declaration of surplus land and road closing processes in accordance with the established procedures. Each applicant is required to provide a $5,000 deposit towards the completion of the road closing process and purchase of the land. The applicants are responsible for all associated costs, including the advertising, surveying, legal fees, land transfer tax, and purchase price of the land. Based on the 2014 appraisal of the land, it is valued at $3 per square foot. The estimated value of the sale of the land is approximately $7,600 per parcel of land. I've included additional information for your review, but as noted, this is a standard process that we've dealt with on a number of lots in that area.
Thank you, Linda. Then the recommendation is that council declares surplus to the municipality's needs and gives notice of council's intention to pass a bylaw to close and sell the unopened section of Eckford Avenue located adjacent to 466 Eckford Avenue and 470 Eckford Avenue. Questions, comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So the next item on the agenda then is a Community Services Parks and Recreation Staff Report, and it has to do with the purchase of a Community Services vehicle, and our Treasurer, Sue Dent, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff conducted a competitive process for a community services vehicle to be used by administrative staff. The first round of tenders received 2 quotes that exceeded the approved budget of $23,000. The scope of the tender was then altered, and a second tender process produced only 1 applicant, that being Georgian Chevrolet Buick GMC. Staff is confident that this vehicle will meet the needs of the requirements for the department, and the $23,000 is approved in the 2016 fleet budget, and we're requesting an additional $1,300 from the fleet reserve to cover the cost.
Thank you, Sue. The recommendation is the council authorizes the purchase of a 2017 Chevrolet Equinox from Georgian Chevrolet Buick GMC at a price of $24,300 plus tax, and further that $1,300 from the fleet reserve be allocated towards the purchase. Comments, questions? Councillor Mike Myatt.
The only question I had, Mr. Mayor, and I talked to our treasurer just before the meeting to clarify, but I just wanted to be assured, like, this is not one extra piece of fleet we're adding to our fleet. It is just, we're not replacing one of our vans, I understand. So I just wanted to hear that in public, that this is not an addition.
I think, can you answer that? Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is not an addition to the fleet. It is a replacement of an existing vehicle that will be disposed of.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about the amount, because it reads at a price of $24,300 plus tax. Does that mean that tax is going to be on top of that, or is it including tax?
The tax is refunded to us. We get the taxes back, so it's a net zero on the tax.
Thank you.
Councillor Matheson.
Sue, is this vehicle going to be big enough? We're getting rid of a van that seats 7 for an Equinox that will squish in 5. You don't know.
I don't know the answer to that one.
Unfortunately, Jane's not here. I suspect they've probably taken that into consideration.
I would expect so.
Yeah. So, we can... Well, he won't fit in an Equinox anyway. Is there any further questions? If not, then all in favor of the recommendation. Opposed to, that's carried. So the next item on our agenda is a petition there for it's a petition for committee of the whole action, and it is to do with the beach grooming. And I look for some direction from committee. Councillor Mike Myatt.
Mr. Mayor, and I know there was a letter came through from, this group of individuals that signed this petition and indicating that they would, they have trust and faith and confidence in our parks manager, and I do too. And Frank Burrows, our new parks manager, he's doing a fantastic job. And but I read that email that came through. You heard David Schemmel's presentation this evening, and I know this group that signed the petition are very interested in receiving the same amount of grooming that the beachfront from the Gobles Grove washroom south to 288 is receiving this year. They've stepped up they rototilled a couple times. There's been some grooming done, and you've got a lot of happy cottagers down there from the washroom to 288. It's a wonderful beach that we reintroduced to the community and brought back. So I didn't want to lose, like in the email, to say we'll just leave with Frank, but I hope that it does get through to the waterfront committee, and then our staff come back with a report offering up some amendments to the beach maintenance standards manual. So I know the email said we're happy, let's just leave it, but Mr. Schemmel did mention tonight, and there were two representatives who earlier left, but they did say in a phone call I had at 5 o'clock today that they really would like to see the same amount of beach grooming maintenance done, similar to the washroom through to 288. I just want to go on record by stating that they have an interest in amending the beach maintenance manual, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Myatt, I think, is right to reference the beach maintenance manual. I mean, that's the document that we need to look at in order to deal with this. And I think this is not likely to be the only amendment that's proposed from people across the community to that plan following the 2016 season. I've heard, obviously there's a number of people out there who would like to see us make some major adjustments to that plan for 2017. So my suggestion would be, Mr. Mayor, that we refer the petition to staff and maybe to the waterfront committee, and that they come back to us, possibly at budget time, with this and all other suggested amendments to the beach management plan. So along with costing, et cetera, so that we know what we're getting into, and we can make decisions about the 2017 plan with all that information in hand. That would be my motion, Mr. Mayor.
A motion to refer then to staff. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Mike Myatt. Further discussion on it? Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with both Councillor Myatt and Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. There's going to have to be a lot of changes to our beach maintenance. We've put in grass to look after our beaches, and it's grown and it's taken hold, but we have to now maintain it. Several of the councillors have walked many of the beaches this summer, and the grass has run wild. We've lost a lot of beach due to the high water, but we've also lost a lot more beach due to the rampant grass. If there's one complaint you hear on the south of Southampton Beach at the Long Dock, is that there's grass everywhere. So we have to, hopefully the waterfront committee will look at that, and we can look at taking care of a lot of the areas that need to be done. So I agree with that motion put forward. Thank you.
Councillor Minaj.
So it's a moving target with the water level rising and falling, and we certainly have come a long way from a beginning maintenance plan. What I would like to make sure, and I agree with everyone else's comments, but I would like to see the science and the education components to the plan as well. And I think that what we've done is we've created a good plan that talks about whether there should be grass growing here, or whether we should plow it under, or whether we should grade it, or whether we should lift the logs off the beach, and if the beach is suitable for migratory birds that are protected species, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we need more of that in our beach plan. Maintenance plan is identifiers and sections that speak to environmental science and education. Educating the public. We had some good education sessions last year, and I think we should continue them. Thank you.
Councillor Dave Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, there isn't a whole lot more to say. Most of the councillors around the room have said just about everything, but I would like to commend the citizens for the manner in which they've gone about this. They've organized themselves, they've got the signatures, they contacted us, they came out, quite a few of them, to our trial of this beach groomer the other day, and we had a chance to have a really good in-depth conversation with them about it. And they've recognized that, like beaches are living, growing ecosystems that change with the tides and the winds and the seasons, the maintenance plan is a living and growing document, and they've recognized that we can add from it, we can delete it, we can change it as the science is recognized and as the conditions change, and that's the great thing about this plan. And I'd like to commend the staff for putting together a plan that it allows that flexibility, and I see this as an opportunity, and maybe we can even capitalize some economies of scale that we can talk about more when we get into the budget times. But there are ways that we can do larger sections with less dollars per section than we currently do. Thanks.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we determine that we're going to send it to staff for a report or a comment, what staff are we talking about? Would it be Frank as the lead?
It'll be Jane. It'll be Community Services. That's who wrote the beach maintenance plan.
This would be a perfect opportunity, I think, to come up with a plan that looks at how to engage in the public in the dialogue, because there's been so many interests shown in the beach that I'd like to think that this might be an opportunity in the early fall to invite. And we've got lots of information because there's been different sections of the beach have commented throughout the last couple of months. But it's a wonderful opportunity for engagement and dialogue. And so hopefully that can fit into this one, and we can see how that might work in the future too for other issues.
Okay, so I guess we have a motion to refer to Community Services. All in favor? Well, that's carried. So our agenda then, that is, the next item on the agenda is communications, petitions for committee of the whole information, and I believe there is 5 pieces there. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a quick comment with regard to item number 1, the news release from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority with regard to the reduction of the screening buffers. I think this is it's sort of a technical release on a technical subject, but I think it would be unwise to go past it without noting how important it is. The screening buffers, to put it as briefly as possible, are used in areas where the Conservation Authority's mapping is not accurate enough to be considered regulation mapping, so that the authority's regulation officers can pick up projects that may be in the regulated area that may not conform with the mapping. It's a way to screen and to ensure to decide whether they're in the zone of regulation or not. But after a year's time taken looking at how the screening buffers are working within the authority, we have realized that the screening buffers did not need to be as big as they were at 50 meters, and that we were able to reduce them by 20 meters without running the risk, or a major risk, of missing a lot of applications. And so we've done that. This also, I think, recognizes the expertise that municipalities have developed over the last number of years in terms of our building officials and their ability to identify whether or not properties fall within the regulated area of the Conservation Authority and refer those development proposals to the Conservation Authority. So literally, hundreds of acres of rural property in the watershed, including in Saugeen Shores, have now been removed from review by the Conservation Authority. Not removed from regulation necessarily, but those properties that are not in the regulated area, those developments that may not fall in the regulated area will no longer have to be screened needlessly. And I think that that's going to reduce the amount of red tape that people looking to develop in our community need to face, and it's also going to speed up the timeline by which the Conservation Authority's regulation officers can act and hopefully improve functionality of the Conservation Authority without compromising the enforcement of the regulation. So I think it's a very positive move, and I think it's just important for Council to be aware of it, and to be aware that the authority continues to make efforts in a large number of areas across an array of different initiatives to improve the time at which it acts and to reduce red tape so that people can develop in a reasonable way while conforming with the regulation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the same correspondence, I would like to congratulate the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority and Luke as the chair, in particular, Deputy Mayor, for taking this action. This is, as somebody who represents the ward that covers the rural areas of Saugeen Shores, this comes as great news for the people in the community who live in the agricultural sector, who are at times very frustrated with what they have to go through, not just with building permits, but with the Saugeen Valley Conservation and all the other things that go along with it. So this just streamlines the process, and I think it's. I don't think Luke went on to say that. I think the GIS system is an aid to this, so they can pinpoint more accurately where buildings are going to go and their proximity to EH land. So this comes as welcome news to the people in the rural areas. Thank you.
Councillor Mike Matt.
Mr. Mayor, I just, there's an item, and I know it's coming up on the regular council meeting about the Southampton Town Hall ad hoc committee, but I've been following their minutes, and I just wanted to say, since it's on as minutes this evening, I just want to congratulate our Vice Deputy Mayor and Councillor Grace. I think you're doing a marvelous job, and I know Duncan's here tonight, and I see some really good stuff happening with plans being put forth to do with the Southampton Town Hall renovations, and it's going to no doubt cost us some money in the future, but I think they're doing some really, really good work. And you look back at that Tor Dingman report back in 2009 or 10, 2010, I believe, and there's some good information in there, and the public needs to be aware that that plan's not collecting dust any longer, which I support, and so I just want to thank our council reps for doing a really, and Duncan, for doing a really good job with bringing that plan forward.
Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert.
Thank you. I think it's number 4 on the list. I just want to make mention of, these are Planning Advisory Committee minutes from actually 2 meetings ago. The way that it works, unfortunately, the minutes from the last meeting aren't here yet, but the next Planning Advisory Committee meeting is this Thursday at 5 o'clock, and I did just send a little notice just flagging to members of council. There's a couple of interesting agenda items this time. Some zoning bylaw changes and an official plan amendment application that I think it'll be an interesting meeting, and there should be some members of the public there, so I just encourage you to note that agenda, and if you're able to attend that meeting, because it's a good segue into a potential report we're going to have in the future about the potential for that activity to be part of council's business. Thanks.
Okay. Nothing else under that, then we will move on to report of department heads, and we have an information report there with mid-year financial review. I don't think you need to go over it all. If there's any questions of Sue, I don't. Start, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question under the administration section, Sue, where it's basically discussing the issue of postage costs being higher, and I just had a question about one of the comments was that 670 customers are receiving their bills through e-post. So I wondered what percentage of our customers would that be? Do you have any ballpark idea?
I don't, but it's a very small number.
Okay. So my next question then is, how frequently do we advertise that as an option?
It goes out twice a year with the tax bills. There's information that goes out in the tax brochure, and also from time to time we'll put it as a note on the water bills as well.
I'm just wondering if there's some way we could maybe also use social media. Like, is it appropriate for us to advertise that as an option on Facebook or on our website, or?
The information is available on the website.
As an ad, like, consider this. This makes your, life easy.
We can try that, sure.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just note, and I think I know the reason why, on the question of the waterfront revitalization line item as well as on the Port Elgin Gateway signage line item. There's no update in the document as to what the status of those projects are, and I think that's probably because the director has been on vacation. But I would like to request perhaps that council can get an update on the status of both of those programs. I know a number of members of council are eager to see where the status of those programs are. So if we could at a future meeting soon get an update on those two programs, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert.
Thank you. There's a section related to waste management, and the first line is bag tag revenues are lower than anticipated and lower than compared to the same time last year. I think before Stuart left, he was intending to bring us a report just as to how the contracting out of the service was working. I just would like to remind Sue that that would be useful information at some point in the future, because I'm curious to know if the bag tag revenues are lower, is the amount of waste going into the landfill lower? And, you know, it's because sometimes there's comparators there that, you know, make sense. Because there is some concern that, you know, we were putting the service out for contracting, and, you know, how is this going to fit together? So I'm curious to know what the volume is going into the landfill and how it all fits together. So just, Stuart was, I know, working on a report. So perhaps at some point that can come forward, has information about how the contract process has been working. Thank you.
Anything further? If not, then we have one other information report, and it has to do with the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund and the province's announcement of the changes to it. That information is there. There is a wealth of information on the website, too, if you wish to go there and look at how those numbers are calculated and the potential for additional monies. So, questions on that? If not, that's the end of our agenda, and we'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Madison and Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. All in favor? We're adjourned.